Greetings and salutations, friends and gamers of all stripes. My name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen, and welcome back to our continued series on campaign health and longevity. Today, we are taking a step away from the GM screen and instead moving down to sit with the players to look at an unorthodox thing that you, as the player, can do that may actually help quite a bit in fostering a healthier, longer-lasting campaign. And it's definitely something that you probably didn't expect. Now, realistically, there's actually quite a lot that you as the player can do to help your GM build a long-lasting, healthy campaign. And we'll touch on a lot of these things in due time. Many of these things obvious, some a little bit less so. All of them likely more important than this. But recent events with a new campaign that I started playing in with an old friend of mine, actually the first time I've been playing with this old friend of mine as a dungeon master, and he has very much been impressing me with his skills as a very flexible and creative game master. One of the things that happened with this time around, something really lately that I've been trying to focus on more and more as my time has only permitted me to really play one-shots much of the time, or if I am playing in a campaign like I am now, I can only really focus on one, maybe two at a time. And really, it has shown me that something I need to practice more of, something that many players need to practice more of, is making sure that we do not write these really excessive backstories for our character. Now, I will admit this is something that I struggle with. I've struggled with it for years, and I continue to struggle with it now, and I fully blame my background in writing for this problem. I enjoy writing character backstories. I enjoy coming up with reasons why my characters are going on adventures and thinking of how they got to where they are and all these little things. But realistically speaking, more often than not, an extensive, in-depth, detailed backstory is going to get in the way of your character more than it is going to help them. And why is this? Well, to put it quite simply, when you write an extensive, highly detailed character background before the game is even started, not only are you making it so that key events that help shape who your character is have already happened, thereby denying character growth, but a little bug will start to kind of crawl into the back of your mind. Now, this won't happen with everybody, but I've seen it happen with enough people that I know the kind of impact this can have. Remember, I've been in this hobby for a long time. I've played with many people from all over the world. I've played with people who have kept the simple backstories and just let things happen to their characters in game and grow from there. I've played with people who don't bother with backstories at all and don't really bother to get much investment in their characters at all. And generally speaking, in my experience, they tend to be the ones who lose interest the fastest, at least where my games are concerned, because my games tend to be a little more character-focused. And then I've played with people like myself, who do write the extensive backstories, who do struggle to keep it short, keep it simple, and just let things be in-game. And more often than not, a little bug crawls into the back of your brain that really makes you want to spill that backstory. It makes you want to spill it all over the other players and let them know these tragic things that happened to you, or all these strange and interesting events that drove you to become an adventurer. I am Sir Osric of the Church of Pelor, and I was a paladin ever since I was an orphan boy. I got sent to the orphanage and was raised to be a paladin after my mother was killed by a gnoll. Now I seek to hunt down the bastard that slew my mother and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Nobody cares. Seriously. Nobody cares. Because none of this has happened. Nobody has experienced this. You have experienced this because you wrote it for yourself. I've experienced my characters' backstories because I wrote them for myself. But the rest of the players, yeah, they might be a bit interested in concept. Yeah, they'll probably enjoy talking about it out of game. But when game time happens, nobody cares. Seriously. Nobody really cares. The in-depth 7 to 19 page backstory, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because that's not what you're experiencing in the game. Now, is it good to have a semblance of backstory for your character? Yes. It's not absolutely necessary. Like I said, I've played with plenty of people who do not write any backstories for their characters, or do not really care about their characters as characters at all. And generally speaking, they tend not to be especially satisfied with my games because, well, I like my games to be more character-focused and a little bit more, plot and story-driven. Ooh, I know, the 5-letter word. So scary. But, that being said, yes, it's important to have some backstory there. But some. You don't need to craft a novel around your character. If you want to craft an in-depth backstory for your character to send them on this journey that leads them to this adventure, this great grand journey that leads them to where the campaign starts, which is usually a much more mundane place than people like ourselves tend to put in our backstories, which ends up feeling a little bit boring. If you want to do all that, write a book or a short story. I'm not joking here. I know that's kind of a meme that's used for people like myself who tend to do this, but I mean, I literally started writing my webcomic partly because this was a habit I had. If you really want to do something like that, just write the story. Just write the story and save that character for that. But for the tabletop games, if you want to have a more satisfying experience in the long term, and trust me, it will be more satisfying. If you want a more satisfying experience in the long term, a more memorable experience that's going to stick with you and your friends for a longer period of time, keep the backstory short and simple. Keep it brief and to the point. No more than 2 paragraphs. Maybe you can push 3, but I would say even that is starting to push the line at this point. And the reason for that is, especially if you're starting out with a level 1 character, you are fresh-faced, or at least you're meant to be. Now, it is definitely arguable that depending on the game you're playing, yes, a level 1 character might not fully qualify as somebody who's fresh-faced. 5th edition D&D, most certainly, first level characters, while they're not seasoned adventurers, you can't exactly call them fresh-faced either. The level of power they have compared to your average schmo is considerable. So, and let's consider too the way backgrounds function in 5th edition. I mean, yeah, you are set up to have a prior career, prior events that happened that for whatever reason eventually led you into being an adventurer. And these events give you some sort of baseline, greater level of experience than the general average. For example, in one of the other games in the I guess technically older campaign that I'm playing now, though it's only really older by about 3 weeks, I'm playing a cleric. Again, sue me, cleric is my favorite class in 5th edition. It's fun. But I'm playing a cleric whose upbringing was as a soldier. She started as a soldier and basically got stranded at sea, got found by a bunch of, people living on an island chain some many miles off of the coastal area in which she lived, and, learned their faith and became one of the faithful because she was relatively young when they took her in. She was in her early teens when they took her in. It's a very medieval sort of world. You're not going to be considered an adult when you hit 18 in this particular setting we're in. You're going to be considered an adult when you hit 13. And if you're not doing something by 13, 14, or 15, once you're set in something, you're set. If you're not getting into some kind of abbey, some sort of, religious center or something like that, you're not going to become a cleric past 15. So, yeah. Well, that's besides the point. But with the way 5th edition works, the soldier background's a great example of this. You have a pre-existing rank. You have a pre-existing place in the military. You had a job that you did before you became an adventurer. You had experience as a soldier, enough that you were something above the rank of just an enlistee, somebody who had at least a little bit of pull according to the background. Because, I mean, if you were just some Joe Schmo low-level private, how are you going to requisition anything in accordance with that background? No, you have to have a bit of pull, which means you have a bit of experience. It is baked into how 5th edition works. But that doesn't mean you need to, even in 5th edition, go on and write an entire novella discussing how your character got to where they are before they started adventuring. Keeping the background short and simple opens up the possibility for your character to both bond with and grow with the other characters that are playing in that game over the course of that game. It gives you a much stronger tie with the world than binding them to the world through the backstory, because you and they are experiencing the world at the same time. If you and your character are able to experience the world at the same time like that, if you are able to grow in your experience alongside your character, it is much more likely that the experience of playing in that game, in that campaign, in that setting will not only be more memorable for you, but more satisfying. And if it feels more satisfying, you're more likely to come back. So there we have it. A simple, unorthodox way that you as a player can potentially help boost the longevity and health of your campaigns. Light, shorter, simpler backstories. So that way, you can experience the campaign fully. That's all I have for you today, friends and gamers of all stripes. Once again, my name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen. If you like what I'm doing here and you would like to see more, please feel free to leave a like, comment down below with what your thoughts are on this particular topic, and make sure to open up that description box to follow me on social media. You can find me on Minds, Gab, Instagram, and once again, because it's back up, Parler as well. And given that we were talking about writing and character backstories and all of that sort of good stuff, while you're down there, do me a favor and make sure to go ahead and check out my webcomic, Phoenix Rising. We are going through now, I believe in about 2 weeks, possibly a week and a half actually, a little bit sooner than that. We're going to be posting the second part of the 3-part intro for Season 3. It's good stuff. My artist, Terra Illustration, she's been showing me the stuff that she's been doing every step along the way. She has been pulling out every stop to make this the best looking episode, or best looking series of episodes, I should say, that we have done so far. I pulled out all the stops when writing this particular segment. This is going to be a good one. It is a great time to get started reading, and especially too because this marks the point where we are going to be ramping up towards closing out the first arc of this story. It's still going to be a while before we get there, but trust me, as of right now, there is no better time to start reading Phoenix Rising. So check it out. And with that now all said and done, dear friends and gamers of all stripes, I would like to remind you once again, in the world of tabletop gaming, you do not want to just sit back and watch, but get in there and game. Have a good one.